Where we left off in part 1 was cleaning up your Illustrator file to condense the number of layers that you have here to something like this, where each part that is moving together or isn't moving at all are completely separate from one another. And then the field doesn't move at all, so that's all in the very bottom layer. Okay, after you have all of that completed, we need to export this as a PSD Photoshop file. So to do that, we're going to go up to File at the top, down to Export. My version is version CS6 and not Creative Cloud. So if you have Creative Cloud, whenever you hover over Export, it will pop open a new box to the side that says Export As. That is what Creative Cloud's users need to be clicking on. CS6 version people like myself just click Export. Okay, down here under Format, we're going to change it to Photoshop PSD. Be sure to click Use Artboards so that if you have any art that is expanding past your artboard borders, it will not include that in your PSD file. And then name it something that you know exactly what this is for. You'll end up having 2 different Photoshop files. So what I've named mine is Edited Layers, so that I know that whenever I look at my 2 PSD files, one will be my Edited Layers version, and the last one will be my full workup of animated frames. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to save it to my desktop and click Export. Color model, what you need to choose whatever option of RGB or CMYK that allows you to click Right Layers. My files you see at the top here says CMYK, so that's why I need to have it in CMYK so that Right Layers is available. If I do RGB, it grays that out. But if you started your project in RGB, then that's what you need to be clicked on so that you can choose Right Layers. This is very important. Also keep resolution at 72 ppi because this is not going to be printed, it's going to be viewed online, and we don't need any of that extra resolution fluff to slow it down. And then be sure to select Right Layers. That way it will include all of these layers into my PSD file. Then just click OK. Alright, I'm going to minimize this, find it on my desktop, here it is, and I'm going to click on it and it should automatically open up in Photoshop. So here she is. You can see in my layers over here that everything is as it's supposed to be. I've got everything labeled accordingly. Okay, now something that we ran into, some of you, whenever you open up your file, and I use this one as an example, Brittany Roberts produced this a couple years ago. Her idiom for this project was butterflies in her stomach. So if your files look like this, you need to do a little bit of some reorganization because we don't need these folders and then individual layers all together. We need everything to look like this. Okay, the way that you do that, if I go up to the top, like here, if I turn it on, it's her burp layer. But whenever I open up that folder, you can see that it splits up like the letters of burp. Okay, and then the paths on either side of burp. All of this needs to be in one solid layer, no folders. So what I'm going to do is click the top sublayer, hold Shift, select the bottom sublayer. I'm going to go to Layer at the top, down to Merge Layers. Okay, there it is. But it's renamed it just Group, so we need to rename that Burp so that we know exactly what we're looking at. Next, we're going to pull it out of that folder. There we go. Now this folder is empty, so I'm going to just hit the trash can. Okay, I'll do it one more time. So for like Flyline, there's only one thing in it. We don't even have to do merge layers. So I'm just going to click the group, rename it fly line, and I'm going to drag it out of the folder, and now the folder is empty. I'm going to delete it. Let's see about arm here. So she has a few of them here. Select the first one, shift select the bottom sublayer, layer, merge layers, okay, and then rename that arm just to make it easier, more organized, and then drag it out of the folder, then delete that empty folder. So you need to continue that until all of these are just solid layers without any folders, okay? So going back to what I just opened here. So this was how mine turned out. To give you a preview of what my GIF ended up looking like so that you see what we're looking forward to here. I closed out of my GIF files. Let's see. Opening my files here. Okay, so here it is. This is what I did. If I just click it and on a Mac, I just hit the space bar, it will open it for me to view like this. Okay, so there she spins. Alright, if I exit out of this and just like double clicked on it for a Mac, it will actually open it up showing all the frames individually that I made. But if the spacebar isn't working for you, or if you are a PC user, you could simply drag your final GIF file down to your chosen browser, and it'll open it on the internet for you. And then you can view it doing its thing. Okay, so this GIF, I spent a lot of time on this. It's a bit more complex than what you are required to do for this class, but this was 23 frames. It took me about 3.5 hours to build, but that was including time of me having to teach myself how to do it, watching tutorial videos and reading tutorial articles. So for you, it may not take near the amount of time, and I had students that produced between, say, 9 and 19 frames. I can't give you a definite number of frames you have to end up with. What you're required to do is have at least 3 actions, okay? So every part of my little bird here that's flipping, every part of her is moving. So that was altogether 5 or 6 actions happening at one time, but you have to have at least 3. So say you have the eyes and the mouth and maybe their arms or legs in an action. That would be 3 separate actions, and you just have to build that to see it through from beginning to end, and however many frames that takes to build it, little by little, like a flip book. This is a digital flip book that you're building. If you make too far of a jump between frames, it's not going to be natural. So however many frames it takes to see your movement from beginning to end in a smooth manner, that's what you need to do. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of that. Alright, so we are now back in Photoshop. Okay, so over here to the right here are all my layers. First thing that we need to do is turn each of these back into a smart object. If you think back to whenever I first taught you Photoshop, every time we would file place an image onto the artboard, for us to edit it, we had to rasterize it because by default it was a smart object. Remember, it would have this little icon in the corner of each preview icon of the layer. So why do we do this? Well, we had to rasterize a smart object in past projects so that we could change the color, so we could cut into it, so we could lasso things and cut things apart and throw it back together. This is a different kind of project. We actually want to turn smart objects back on because all we want is to be able to move things and rotate things, scale things, and warp things to a degree. And so turning all of these back into a smart object will safeguard us from accidentally hitting the paintbrush tool or delete something we're not supposed to. So how we're going to do that is right click on the text of each layer and click Convert to Smart Object. Okay, so you have to click on the text. If you click on the icon, it will produce a different menu option. If you can't do it this way, another way you can do this is select the layer, go up to Layer at the top, down to Smart Objects, and Convert to Smart Object. So that's a little bit longer way to do it. So if you can, it's quickest if you right click and do Convert to Smart Object. I originally, whenever I was testing this out, tried to figure out how to do all of these at once. And whenever I did, it would convert all of these to one flat layer smart object. And that's not what we need. We need these separate so we can edit them apart. Okay, whoops, missed that one. Okay. Alright, next thing we need to do is drop all these layers into a group folder. Okay, how we do that is click at the very bottom of the layers palette. There's this folder icon. Click there, and here it is, and it says Group 1. I'm going to click that, double click it, and rename it Frame 1. Hit Enter. And we're going to move all of these layers into that group folder. So to do that, I'm going to click the top button, hold down Shift, click the bottom one, and drag them into Frame 1. Now whenever we hide these, it goes away and we can toggle it and maximize, bring them back down. Okay, why we do this will make sense in a moment. Now we're ready to look at how to operate the timeline palette. This is the timeline palette here. If you don't have it open yet, you go to Window at the top, down to Timeline. Okay, so right now my button right here says Create Frame Animation. If it says Create Video Timeline, you need to click this downward arrow right here and be sure you select Create Frame Animation. Okay, now to turn it on, I just click on the words, and here it is. So right now, we have our very first frame. Okay, before we can continue, this is so important. If you do not do this, it will screw up what you do from here on out. Okay, be sure you double check this. So many students miss it. Over here in the top right corner of the timeline palette, there's a little option button where it has 3 horizontal lines. I'm going to click there. Be sure that nothing on this menu is check marked. Okay, what's been causing so many students problems is by default this new layers visible in all frames is selected. We actually need to make sure it's deselected. Okay, mine's good to go, so I'm going to click away. My next thing I'm going to do is if I look at my frame down here, there is a number of seconds listed. By default, mine says 0 seconds. So we want to change that because we want each frame to have at least a little bit of time to run through it whenever we're playing it. So I'm going to click the downward arrow next to the time, and I can click any of these that are already listed, but I'm going to click Other because I found whenever I was working on my project here is typing 0.06 seconds. Okay. Now every time I make a new frame, every frame after that will be 0.06 seconds. And as you work, if this ends up being a time that's too slow or too fast, you can edit that. And you can also customize it where certain frames are different speeds than others. We'll get into that later. Okay, so now this is our first frame. Notice that this frame has a number 1 on it, and whenever that's selected and I work on it, frame 1 needs to be selected here in my layers. Alright, we are now ready to make our second frame. This process, every time you make a new frame, has to be followed. If you get it out of order, it will mess up what you're working on and just make a big mess. So when you are ready to make a new frame, number 1, You come to the bottom of your timeline palette and you click the icon. It looks like create new layer, but it means create new frame for this situation. So I click that. There it is, number 2. Alright, now number 2 in creating your new frame. You are going to duplicate your previous group folder. In this case, we've only got frame 1. I'm going to click this layer group here, drag it down to the create new layer icon, and let go. Now it's made a duplicate of frame 1. It says frame 1 copy. I'm going to double click and rename that frame 2. You've got to keep these organized, naming them as I say so that you will not get confused later. Okay, so I have frame 2 selected at the bottom and frame 2 selected in my layers. Now I'm going to open up that layer, and this is where I'm going to start editing and moving things little by little. So I'm going to zoom in. Let's see, I want to move my palm wing left layer first. So for some of you, you just need to move it. I want to rotate mine. If you just need to move it, have your move tool selected in the left hand toolbar, and then you would just simply click and drag the arm over a little piece. But in my case, I don't want that. I'm going to rotate. I'm going to undo that, Command Z. So to rotate it, I'm going to have my layer selected and click Command T on my keyboard for transform. Okay, whenever I hover my cursor on the outer edge corner of the transform box, it will have a curved arrow to mean that it's ready to click and rotate. So I click down and drag my cursor around to rotate. I'm going to put it back into place and hit enter on my keyboard. So if you want to scale, for instance, if I hit Command T again, I'd be careful not to scale it too big because it may become pixelated, okay? Like right now, you can already tell that it's fuzzier than the pom-pom behind it. I'm going to undo that. So in most cases, you want to scale it down smaller if that's something that you are interested in doing. Or if I do Command T, some people played with warping it by clicking these any of these anchors on the side and not holding shift, and you can warp it to any degree. Okay, that's not what I want either. I'm going to undo. Okay, so I've already moved that palm wing, so I'm going to click the other palm wing, do Command T, I'm going to rotate, hit enter, drag it into place. Let's see, if I want to make her eyes more expressive, I can click I left, Command T, rotate, enter, then click I right, Command T, rotate, enter. I can kind of move it in place. Alright, now if I want to move her left leg, I can, Command T, rotate it around, hit enter. And now let's see, I want to rotate her entire body. So to do that, I'm going to select the top layer and shift select down to body. I'm not going to select the field because I'm not moving the field. I want to leave it alone, okay? If you want to be doubly sure that you do not move your background layer, what you can do is select it and click your lock key right here to be sure you don't accidentally move it, because there have been students that accidentally click it and move their background, and when they play back their GIF, it looks like their background is having an earthquake or something. Your only issue is if you make a mistake and you have to go back and delete some of your folder groups, then this will keep you from being able to delete that folder group. So if you're having that issue and you need to delete a folder group, open it up and see if you've got anything locked. And then to unlock it, you just select it and you re-click the lock button there. Okay, I'm going to keep mine locked. Okay, I'm going to click the top sublayer, shift click down to body, then do Command T and rotate everything and click OK. Alright, that is now frame 2. I'm going to minimize that. Alright, now we're going to test what's happened between frame 1 and frame 2. So I'm going to come down to the bottom and click frame 1. So there was my original frame, and then click frame 2. Okay, it's working well. Alright, something I want to point out. Whenever you click frame 1, notice in your layers palette that only frame 1 eyeball is on. Frame 2 is turned off. That is supposed to be that way, okay? And then whenever I click frame 2 at the bottom here, now both eyeballs for frame 1 and frame 2 are selected. It is supposed to be that way. So if at one point something gets off, be sure that you have to go back and click every frame at the bottom of your timeline palette and say, like, you have number 1 selected, well then only frame 1 in your folder is turned on. You turn on 2, then 2 and below is selected. If we had frame 3, then frame 3 and below are turned on, and so forth. We're ready to make our third frame now. So remember, number 1, we select to create new frame at the bottom here. Now we duplicate the frame 2 group folder. So I'm going to grab it, drag it down to create new layer. It duplicates it, calls it frame 2 copy. So I'm going to double click that and change it to frame 3. Hit enter. Okay, now we have the 3 frames selected at the bottom, frame 3 selected in our layers. We're going to open it up and we're going to go and move these same items just a little bit more. So I'm going to go back to palm wing left, Command T, rotate, move into place, enter, palm right, Command T, rotate, put into place, enter. Let's just do her leg, Command T, rotate, move into place, and then I want to move her entire body. So I'm going to click the top layer, shift, select body. Remember, we're not moving field and it's locked just to keep us safe anyway. Command T to transform and rotate everything. Hit enter, move it over into place. Alright, now minimize it. Now we're going to go check it. Click 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, it's coming along. You will keep up with that system until you feel like you have completed the look you were going for. I'm going to go to my completed file here, where I ended up with 23 frames. Okay, so if I click through each of these, you can see little by little how I created her. Okay, and I can even go back to the beginning and hit this play button right here, and it will play in Photoshop. However, something I found is there is a little lag time whenever you play it in Photoshop, so you will not know exactly how fast it's going until you create the GIF and you play it on your desktop or play it on your internet browser. Okay, I'm going to hit stop now. Alright, I'm going to address how do you change the speed after you've completed your GIF. So what you can do if you want to select everything, I'm going to select the first frame, shift select the third frame. I'm going to click the time and other. So if I wanted to turn this into a, let's see, it's 0.06 right now. If I wanted to change it to 0.08, click OK. Now all of them are adjusted to the same thing, but I don't have to keep every frame at the same speed. I can click and choose to make one of them last a little longer or a little slower. I just click that individual one and make my change. In my file that I completed, all of these stayed at 0.06 except for the end. I wanted to keep her landed for 1 second before she did another cartwheel. If I didn't do that and kept all of them 0.06, she would just be in one massive cartwheel constantly. And so I wanted her to have a moment to land because I wanted this GIF to loop constantly, but I wanted her to have a moment of rest. So I changed that very last one to 1 second. Okay, as you continue building out all your frames here, be sure that you save a Photoshop PSD file just in case. You need to have a PSD file of this in case you need to revisit it and edit it in the future, or just to simply come back to it. And you need to be able to save it in case your computer crashes. So if I go to File up the top, Save As, since this is your second Photoshop file in this entire project, name it something that you know that this is specifically for building frames. So I can call it, for instance, all frames.psd and save it to my desktop. Okay, now let's pretend I'm completely finished with this GIF. Now to save it out, I'm going to go to File, and for me as a CS6 user, I would choose Save for Web right here. But for Creative Cloud users, you will go to File, there will be a button that says Export, but you will have an option that pops out to the side that says Save for Web Legacy. So that's a little bit different. So for CC users, File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. For me, my Save for Web is right here for CS6. Okay, here's my box here. For format, make sure GIF is selected. For colors, keep it on 256. Make sure Convert to sRGB is selected because this isn't going to be printed, it's going to be online, and online reads sRGB. And then lastly, check out your looping options here at the bottom. It can be set to once or forever. So whenever you do once, you would have to refresh the browser for it to play again. If you do forever, it will continually run. So I'm going to do forever just to show you what that looks like. And hit save. And I need to call it what I want the demo to be called. I'm going to say demo.gif to my desktop, hit save. Okay, now I'm going to minimize it and go find it. Here it is. Okay, so if I hit the space bar as a Mac user, it will open it and play it on screen. Okay, this is only 3 frames, so she looks pretty crazy right now, and it's happening continuously. Okay, if I have a PC, or if I just want to look at it on screen on the internet, I'm going to exit out of this, click, drag my icon down to Google Chrome or whatever your preferred internet browser is, and there she is. Okay, so you will not know the exact speed until you get it open as the GIF file, not in Photoshop. I'm going to exit out of that. So that's a lot crazier looking than the one that I ended up with, which was this one. No, this one. I'm going to hit my space bar. There she is. So I hope this tutorial is helpful and covers all of the issues that y'all come across. This covers everything that we dealt with as a class this semester. Now, note too about uploading your GIF to the internet. Most social media websites do not support animated GIFs on their own. Like I tried to upload my GIF to Facebook, and there are GIFs that are flat, and then there are GIFs that are animated. Facebook does not support animated GIFs. So when I uploaded it, it looked really crazy. It was just a flat file showing kind of the motion lines of all the layers in between. So what you can do is go to giphy.com, GIPHY.com, and you can make an account, or you don't have to. You can upload your GIF to that website, and actually I'll just go ahead and log on to it for you. Here it is, and we can do upload right here, and then you simply drag and drop your GIF into it, and they make it really simple. It will pop up with a box in the end that says how you can automatically click these social media icons to send it directly to your account to share, or you can copy and paste the URL that you see at the top of the screen after it's uploaded. And they also offer the code that you can rip to embed it into your websites. So a really handy thing, and this is also what I want you to use to save to Flickr. So we cannot upload animated GIFs to Flickr either. So what we can do, just to kind of help build this library for future classes, and for y'all to see each other, all your classmates in your class and other sections. Okay, looking crazy. I click to see it in motion, and there she goes. And she just plays freely. Okay, so that's how we're going to build our library of GIFs so that y'all can check each other's out. Okay, well, I hope this video was very helpful and addresses a lot of issues that you come across. And as a reminder, there are countless ways on how to build a successful GIF. Just in all of my research, I just discovered for this class, this was the best option to fit every need of every student in the class. So for us, we start in Illustrator, end up in Photoshop, but you can also use other Adobe software such as After Effects and Flash, and they offer tools to build GIFs that are not available to Photoshop. So if you really enjoy building GIFs, by all means, please explore the other software and options by viewing tutorials online.